Jake Morrison stared at the computer screen in front of him. The numbers and symbols dancing across the display made no sense at first. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked again. The space station around him hummed quietly as it moved through the darkness of space. "Lisa, come take a look at this," Jake called out to his teammate. Lisa Chong pushed her chair back from her own workstation and walked over. She had been working on Earth communications for the past 6 hours. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard blue uniform of the Sentinel Prime crew. "What do you have, Commander?" she asked, leaning over. His shoulder to see the screen. Jake pointed at the strange pattern of signals. "This came in about 10 minutes ago. It's not from any of our ships or stations. A computer says it's coming from deep space, way beyond our solar system." Lisa's eyes grew wide. She had been working with space communications for 8 years, but she had never seen anything like this. A signal was too organized to be natural. It had structure, patterns, and what looked like mathematics. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" she whispered before Jake could answer. Then Rodriguez came, running over from the tactical station. His face was pale, and his hands shook slightly as he carried a printed report. "Commander, we have a problem. Or maybe it's not a problem. I don't know what it is," Ben said, breathing hard. Jake stood up from his chair. At 35 years old, he had been commanding this space station for 3 years. He was used to problems, but something about Ben's expression made him nervous. "Slow down, Ben. What's going on?" Ben handed him the report. "The signal isn't just random. Our computers have been working on it for the past few minutes. It's a message. A real message from someone or something that isn't human." The 3 of them stood in silence for a moment. Around them, the space station continued its slow rotation. Other crew members worked at their stations, not yet knowing what had just happened. Jake looked at the report again. The computer had found patterns in the signal, mathematical sequences that any intelligent species would recognize. Prime numbers, the value of pi, and simple geometric shapes. Then, at the end, something that looked like a greeting. "We need to call Earth immediately," Jake said. "This is way above our level." Lisa was already moving toward the main communication console. "I'll get Dr. Foster on the line. She's been waiting for something like this her whole career." 20 minutes later, Dr. Amanda Foster's face appeared on the large screen in the station's main conference room. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. Behind her, Jake could see the busy command center of the Xenological Assessment Division on Earth. "Commander Morrison, I understand you've received an unusual transmission," Dr. Foster said, her voice calm and professional. Jake nodded. "Yes, ma'am. We've sent you all the data. Our computers confirm it's definitely from an intelligent source, and it's definitely not human." Dr. Foster smiled slightly. "Commander, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. This moment has been planned for decades. You and your crew are about to become part of the most important operation in human history." Lisa and Ben exchanged glances. Jake felt his heart beating faster. "We call it Protocol Omega," Dr. Foster continued. "For the past 60 years, we've been preparing for first contact with alien species. But we're not going to do what most people think we would do." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "We're not going to welcome them with open arms. We're not going to show them our real Earth or our real capabilities. Instead, we're going to test them. We're going to find out what kind of beings they really are before we let them anywhere near our home planet." Ben leaned forward. "A test? What kind of test?" Dr. Foster's expression became serious. "We're going to lie to them, Commander. We're going to pretend to be something we're not. We're going to act like a primitive species that just learned how to travel between planets. We're going to see how they treat us when they think we're weak and helpless. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. And if they fail the test, then they never get to see what humanity is really capable of. They never get to know about our real technology, our real colonies, or our real military strength. They get sent away, and they never come back. Lisa spoke up. How many times have we done this before? Dr. Foster paused. This will be the 18th time, Commander Chong. 17 other species have found us over the past century. Some passed the test and became our allies. Others failed and were sent away. A few failed so badly that they had to be dealt with. More permanently, the room fell silent. Jake looked around at his crew. These were people he had worked with for years, people he trusted with his life. Now they were being asked to be part of something much bigger than running a space station. What do you need from us? Jake asked. First, we need you to respond to their message. Tell them we're excited to meet them, but we're a young species that has only recently discovered space travel. Make us sound hopeful but naive. And we need you to guide them to the testing facility. Testing facility? Ben asked. Dr. Foster nodded. We built a fake Earth on a moon in the Ross 128 system. It looks like an early human colony, complete with cities, farms, and what appears to be our entire civilization. The aliens will think it's our homeworld. They'll never know the real Earth exists. Jake stared at the screen. How long have you been planning this? Since 1962, when we first detected signs of alien activity in nearby star systems. We decided then that we would never make first contact without knowing exactly what we were dealing with. Too many civilizations in history have been destroyed by contact with more advanced species. We refuse to let that happen to humanity. Dr. Foster leaned forward. Your station will be the first point of contact. You'll be the ones who decide whether these aliens are friends or enemies. The future of our species may depend on how well you play your parts. Jake looked at Lisa and Ben. They nodded back at him. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. We understand, Dr. Foster. We won't let you down. I know you won't, Commander. The test begins now. Captain Rick Turner stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching the alien ship grow larger on the main screen. The vessel looked like nothing humans had ever built. It was smooth and curved, with a silver surface that seemed to shimmer in the young light of the nearby star. They're beautiful ships, said Dr. Helen Brooks, the team's language expert. She stood beside Rick, holding a tablet with translation software. I've never seen anything like them. Rick nodded, but his mind was focused on the mission. The Aurora looked like a simple diplomatic vessel, but it was actually one of the most advanced ships in the human fleet. Every surface, every system, every crew member was part of the elaborate lie they were about to tell. Remember, everyone, Rick said to his crew through the ship's communication system. We're just a young species that recently learned to travel between stars. We're excited to meet them, but we're not very advanced. Stick to the script. Paul Mitchell, the security chief, walked up to join them. He wore a simple uniform that made him look like a basic ship's guard. In reality, he was a highly trained Special Forces operative with decades of experience. Captain, they're asking permission to come aboard, Paul said. Rick took a deep breath. Tell them we're honored to meet them. Bring them to conference room 3. Conference room 3 had been specially prepared for this meeting. The furniture was simple and looked like it had been made by a species that was still learning about space travel. The walls were decorated with pictures of Earth that showed only the most basic human achievements. 30 minutes later, the aliens arrived. Rick tried not to show his surprise at their appearance. They were tall, maybe 7 feet high, with long arms and legs. Their skin was pale blue, and they had large, dark eyes. They wore clothes that seemed to be made of some kind of metal fabric. The leader stepped forward and made a gesture that might have been a greeting. "I am Veltar, ambassador of the Zephyrian Collective. We are pleased to meet the humans of Earth." Dr. Brooks stepped forward with her translation device. "Welcome, Ambassador Veltar. I am Dr. Helen Brooks, and this is Captain Rick Turner. We represent the people of Earth." Veltar's large eyes studied the humans carefully. "We have traveled far to meet you. Our scientists detected your radio signals many years ago. We are impressed that such a young species has learned to travel between planets." Rick smiled and tried to look humble. "We're still learning, Ambassador. We've only had space travel for about 50 years. We're excited to learn from more advanced civilizations like yours." The alien ambassador seemed pleased by this response. "The Zephyrian Collective has been traveling the stars for over 2,000 years. We have brought gifts to show our friendship." One of the other aliens stepped forward and presented a small device. "This is a medical scanner. It can detect and cure most diseases. We offer it as a sign of our peaceful intentions." Helen took the device and examined it carefully. It was indeed advanced technology, but not as advanced as the medical equipment already in use on the real Earth. The aliens didn't know that humans had solved most disease problems decades ago. "This is wonderful," Helen said, acting impressed. "Our doctors will be very interested in this." Veltar seemed satisfied. "We are pleased to help. The collective believes in sharing knowledge with younger species. In return, we hope to learn about your culture and perhaps establish trade relations." Rick nodded. "We would be honored to trade with you. What kinds of things does the collective need?" "We are always interested in new resources. Your planet appears to have abundant water and minerals. We could offer you protection and guidance in exchange for access to these resources." Paul Mitchell kept his expression neutral, but Rick could see the tension in his security chief's shoulders. The word protection had been spoken like a threat. Protection from what? Rick asked, trying to sound curious rather than suspicious. "The galaxy is a dangerous place for young species," Veltar replied. "There are many civilizations that would take advantage of a developing world. The collective can offer safety in exchange for membership in our organization." Dr. Brooks looked at her translation device. "Membership? What would that involve?" "Your people would become part of the collective. You would follow our laws and customs. In return, we would protect you and help you develop your technology. It is a fair arrangement that has worked well for many species." Rick felt his heart rate increase, but he kept his voice calm. "That sounds like a big decision. We would need to discuss it with our leaders on Earth." "Of course," Veltar said. "We understand that your species values what you call democracy. We will be patient while you make your decision." The meeting continued for 2 more hours. The aliens showed them more technology and talked about the benefits of joining the collective. They spoke about protection, guidance, and the sharing of knowledge. But Rick noticed that they never asked about human culture, art, or values. They seemed interested only in what Earth could provide for them. After the aliens returned to their ship, Rick called a meeting with his senior officers. They gathered in the real conference room, deep inside the Aurora, where their conversations could not be overheard. "Well, that was interesting," Paul said, taking off his simple uniform to reveal the advanced tactical gear underneath. "Did anyone else notice that they talked about membership like they were talking about ownership?" Helen nodded. "A translation software picked up some concerning word choices. When they said protection, the underlying meaning was more like control. And when they talked about sharing knowledge, they meant us giving them information, not the other way around." Rick activated the secure communication system. "Dr. Foster, are you monitoring this?" Dr. Foster's voice came through the speakers. Clearly. "We heard everything, Captain. What are your initial impressions?" "They're not here to make friends," Rick said. They're here to recruit us as a client species. They want our resources and our obedience. That matches our analysis, Dr. Foster replied. We've been studying their ship's energy signatures and communication patterns. They're scanning everything they can about human technology and biology. Paul leaned forward. Are they planning to invade? Not exactly, Dr. Foster said. They prefer to recruit species voluntarily. It's easier to manage willing servants than conquered enemies. But if we refuse to join their collective, they might use force. Helen looked worried. What do we do now? We continue the test, Rick said. We pretend to be interested in their offer while we learn as much as we can about their true intentions. Dr. Foster, how long do we have? They'll expect an answer within a few weeks. That gives us time to run them through the full evaluation. Protocol. We need to know if they're just arrogant or if they're actually dangerous. Rick nodded. Understood. We'll keep playing the part of naive humans who are grateful for their attention. Over the next few days, the Aurora and the Zephyrian ship traveled together toward the fake Earth. Rick and his crew continued to meet with the aliens, always acting like they were impressed by Zephyrian technology and grateful for their guidance. But, in private, they documented everything. They recorded conversations, analyzed alien technology, and studied the behavior of the Zephyrian crew. The more they learned, the more concerned they became. The aliens treated humans like interesting, but inferior creatures. They spoke to Rick and his crew the way adults might speak to children, patient but condescending. They assumed humans would be grateful for any attention from a more advanced species. Most disturbing was their attitude toward individual human lives. When Rick mentioned that humans valued the freedom and rights of each person, the aliens seemed confused. They couldn't understand why the opinion of individual humans mattered when the leaders had already been contacted. Dr. Foster was right. This was a test, and so far, the Zephyrians were failing badly. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker looked out the window of the control room at the fake Earth below. The planet looked perfect from space, with blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents. No one would guess that it was actually a carefully built testing facility. The Zephyrians will be here in 6 hours, said Dr. Carol Jensen, the team's psychology expert. She was studying data from the past week's interactions with the aliens. Are we ready for Phase 2 of the test? Steve nodded. All the actors are. In position. The fake cities are operational, and the emergency scenarios are prepared. We'll see how they respond when they think humans are in real danger. The fake Earth was an amazing creation. It had taken 20 years to build, with entire cities populated by human volunteers who were trained to act like members of a primitive spacefaring civilization. They had farms, factories, and even a space program that looked like it was just beginning to explore the solar system. Remember, Steve said to his team, we need to create situations that will show us their true character. We need to know if they see us as partners or as property. Dr. Jensen pulled up a file on her computer. I've been analyzing their conversations from the past week. They use language patterns that suggest they see humans as useful, but not equal. They talk about us the way we might talk about a smart animal that can be trained. Kevin Walsh, the behavioral analyst, looked up from his own work. It's worse than that. They've been studying our weaknesses. They ask questions about human government, military capabilities, and resource distribution. They're not planning to trade with us as equals. They're planning to manage us. Steve felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. Then we need to give them a chance to prove us wrong. Dr. Garcia, are the emergency scenarios ready? Dr. Nina Garcia, the team's xenobiology expert, nodded. We have 3 different crisis situations prepared. A natural disaster, a medical emergency, and a resource shortage. Each one is designed to test their empathy and willingness to help humans without expecting something in return. 6 hours later, the Zephyrian ship entered orbit around the fake Earth. Captain Turner and his crew were still playing their roles, acting excited to show the aliens their homeworld. "This is beautiful," Veltar said as he looked at the planet on the Aurora's main screen. "Your species has done well for such a young civilization." Rick smiled. "We're proud of our world, but we know we still have a lot to learn. We hope you'll be able to help us improve." "Of course," Veltar replied. "The collective has helped many species advance beyond their natural limitations. We can do the same for humanity." The way he said "natural limitations" made Rick's skin crawl, but he kept smiling. They landed at the main spaceport of New Geneva, the fake Earth's capital city. The city was home to 500,000 human actors, all trained to play their parts perfectly. They had schools, hospitals, markets, and government buildings that looked like they belonged to a species that was still figuring out how to live on other planets. Veltar and his team were given a tour of the city. They met with the fake president, visited the fake space agency, and saw the fake research centers where humans were supposedly trying to develop better technology. "Your people seem happy," Veltar observed as they walked through a market area. "But we notice some inefficiencies in your systems. With proper guidance, you could increase your productivity significantly." The fake president, an actor named Mayor Dan Price, nodded eagerly. "We're always looking for ways to improve." "What would you suggest?" "Centralized control would be more efficient," Veltar explained. "Instead of having many different leaders and opinions, you could have a single authority that makes decisions for everyone. This would eliminate waste and confusion." Steve, who was monitoring the conversation from the hidden command center, made a note. The aliens wanted to replace human democracy with their own system of control. The next day, the first test began. Steve's team activated the natural disaster scenario. A fake earthquake hit the city's eastern district, causing buildings to collapse and trapping hundreds of people under the rubble. Emergency alarms sounded throughout the city. The fake news broadcasts showed scenes of destruction and called for help from anyone who could provide it. The local emergency teams rushed to the scene, but they were obviously overwhelmed. Rick found Veltar in the hotel where the aliens were staying. "Ambassador, we have a terrible emergency. Hundreds of our people are trapped, and our rescue equipment isn't advanced enough to help them quickly. Do you have any technology that could help us save them?" Veltar looked thoughtful. "We do have equipment that could clear the rubble quickly, but using it would reveal some of our more advanced capabilities. We prefer to keep our technology private until trust is established." Rick felt his heart sink. People are dying. Doesn't that matter more than keeping secrets? "Of course it matters," Veltar said. "But we must think about the long-term relationship between our species. If we reveal too much too quickly, it could cause problems later." Steve watched the conversation through hidden cameras. The aliens were more concerned about their own interests than about human lives. They were willing to let people die to protect their advantage, but the test wasn't over yet. Rick continued to plead with the aliens, explaining that every minute of delay meant more deaths. Finally, after 2 hours of discussion, Veltar agreed to help, but only if the humans signed a preliminary agreement to consider joining the collective. "Can't make political decisions while people are dying," Rick said. "Please, just help us save them first." Veltar shook his head. "Everything has a price, Captain. If you want our help, you must show good faith by taking the first step toward membership." Steve had heard enough. The aliens were using human suffering as leverage to get what they wanted. They failed the first test completely. The second test began 3 days later. A fake plague broke out in one of the smaller cities. The disease was supposedly unknown to human medicine, and people were getting sick quickly. The fake doctors claimed they needed advanced medical knowledge to create a cure. Once again, Rick approached the aliens for help. This time, Veltar was more willing to assist, but he wanted something in return. "We can cure this disease easily," he said, "but we will need detailed information about human biology and genetics. We must understand your species better to help you properly." Dr. Brooks, who was still playing her role as a translator, looked worried. "What kind of information do you need?" "Complete genetic profiles of your population, medical histories, reproductive patterns, information about your immune systems and biological weaknesses." Steve realized what was happening. The aliens were willing to help, but they wanted information that would make it easier to control or manipulate humans. In the future, why do you need all that information just to cure a disease? Rick asked. "Complete knowledge is necessary for complete solutions," Veltar replied. "If you trust us to help you, you must trust us with the information we need." The conversation continued for hours. The aliens were willing to save human lives, but only if humans gave them detailed information about their biology and society. They wanted to help, but they also wanted to collect intelligence. Steve made more notes. The aliens saw helping humans as an opportunity to gain advantage, not as a moral duty. The third test was the most revealing. Steve's team created a resource shortage in the mining regions. The fake miners claimed they couldn't produce enough metals to meet the planet's needs. Food shortages followed, and some areas were forced to ration supplies. When Rick told the aliens about the crisis, their response was immediate and telling. "This is exactly why younger species need guidance," Veltar said. "You lack the experience to manage your resources efficiently. Under collective management, these problems would not occur." "Can you help us solve the current crisis?" Rick asked. "Of course. We can provide the resources you need and teach you better management techniques. But this situation proves that your species is not ready for independence. You need permanent oversight to prevent future crises." Steve felt sick. The aliens were using human suffering to justify taking control of human society. They weren't offering to help humans learn to solve their own problems. They were offering to solve the problems. By taking away human independence. In the hidden command center, Dr. Foster reviewed all the data from the 3 tests. "They failed every single scenario," she said. "They're willing to help humans, but only when it serves their own interests. They see us as children who need permanent supervision." Steve nodded. "They're not evil, but they're not friends either. They think they're doing us a favor by taking control of our lives." "The test is complete," Dr. Foster said. "They've shown us exactly who they are. Now we need to decide what to do about it." Steve looked at the monitoring screens, where the aliens were still walking around the fake Earth, making plans for humanity's future. They had no idea that they were being judged, and they had no idea that they were failing. "Phase 3 begins tomorrow," he said. "Time to show them what humans are really capable of." Admiral Tony Clark sat in his command chair aboard the battleship Enterprise, hidden in the asteroid belt beyond the fake Earth. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the situation on the test planet below. The time for pretending was almost over. "Admiral, we're receiving the final report from the testing facility," said Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the communications officer. "The Zephyrians have failed all 3 phases of the evaluation." Tony nodded grimly. "What are they doing now?" "They're meeting with the fake government leaders. According to our intelligence, they're preparing to make a formal offer for Earth to join their collective." Tony activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Clark. Operation Revelation begins in 30 minutes. Remember, we want them to understand the truth, not start a war." Across the solar system, dozens of human ships powered up their engines and began moving toward the fake Earth. These were not the simple vessels the aliens had seen so far. These were advanced warships with technology that would shock the Zephyrians. Meanwhile, on the fake Earth, Rick Turner received a coded message on his personal communicator. It was time to drop the act. "Ambassador Valtar," Rick said, walking into the meeting room where the aliens were discussing their plans. "I need to speak with you immediately." Valtar looked up from a holographic display showing Earth's resources. "Of course, Captain. We were just finalizing our proposal for your leaders." "That won't be necessary," Rick said. His voice was different now, more confident and commanding. "The charade is over, Ambassador. It's time you learned the truth about humanity." The aliens looked confused. "What do you mean?" Valtar asked. Rick touched a control on his belt, and the walls of the room became transparent. Outside, the fake city was changing. Buildings that had looked simple and primitive were transforming, revealing advanced technology hidden beneath false surfaces. "This isn't Earth," Rick said. "This is a testing facility. For the past 2 weeks, you've been under evaluation. I'm sorry to say that you've failed." Valtar stood up quickly, his large eyes wide with shock. "Testing facility? What are you talking about? Everything you've seen has been a lie designed to test your character. We wanted to know what kind of beings you really are. We wanted to see how you would treat a species you thought was weak and primitive." Dr. Brooks stepped forward, and she too seemed different. Her simple translator's uniform was gone, replaced by the advanced gear of a military intelligence officer. "We've been recording everything," she said. "Every conversation, every decision, every moment when you chose your own interests over human lives. We know exactly who you are now." The room filled with light as holographic displays showed the aliens. Conversations from the past 2 weeks. Their words about controlling humans, their demands for information, their willingness to let people die to protect their own advantages. "You've been judging us?" Valtar asked, his voice filled with anger and confusion. "That's right," Rick said. "And you've been found wanting." Outside the building, the fake Earth continued to transform. The primitive spaceport revealed itself to be an advanced military facility. The simple buildings showed their true nature as sophisticated research centers. The humans who had been acting like grateful primitives removed their disguises to reveal the uniforms of trained soldiers and scientists. Paul Mitchell, no longer pretending to be a simple security guard, activated his communication device. "All teams initiate full disclosure protocol." In orbit around the fake Earth, the Zephyrian ship's sensors began detecting new contacts. Ships were approaching from all directions, ships that hadn't been there moments before. "Impossible," whispered one of Valtar's assistants, staring at his scanner. "Where did they come from?" Lieutenant Sarah Kim's voice came through the communication. "System. Attention, Zephyrian vessel. You are surrounded by the human defense fleet. Power down your weapons and prepare to receive our admiral." On the main screen in the meeting room, Admiral Clark's face appeared. He was a stern man in his 60s, wearing the uniform of Earth's real military. "Ambassador Valtar," the admiral said, "I am Admiral Tony Clark of the Human Defense Force. I believe you've been having some interesting conversations with our people." Valtar struggled to understand what was happening. "This is impossible. You're a young species. You've only had space travel for 50 years. Admiral Clark smiled coldly. "That's what we wanted you to think. The truth is, humanity has been traveling the stars for over 2 centuries. We have colonies in 17 different star systems. We've made contact with dozens of alien species, and we've learned to be very careful about who we trust." The holographic display in the room changed to show the real Earth, a planet protected by massive defense stations and surrounded by a fleet of advanced warships. "This is our real homeworld," Admiral Clark said. "Population 12 billion. Protected by technology you can't even imagine. We've been watching your collective for decades. waiting to see if you were the kind of species we could work with. Marcus Lee, the chief engineer who had been pretending to work on primitive systems, stepped forward. We've been analyzing your technology for weeks. It's impressive, but it's not as advanced as you think. We've already improved on most of your designs. He activated a device that projected a hologram of advanced human technology. Engines that could cross the galaxy in days, weapons that could destroy entire fleets, medical systems that could cure any disease. How is this possible? Veltar asked. Because we've been testing species like yours for over a century, Admiral. Clark said. Every time a new civilization finds us, we put them through the same evaluation. We pretend to be weak and primitive, and we see how they treat us. Rick walked closer to the stunned alien ambassador. 17 species have found us over the past 100 years. 12 of them passed the test. They proved they could treat humans as equals, even when they thought we were less advanced than them. Those species are now our allies and friends. And the other 5? Veltar asked quietly. They failed, just like you did. They saw us as property to be managed or resources to be exploited. They're no longer a problem. The threat in Rick's voice was clear. The aliens who had failed the test, badly enough, had been eliminated. Dr. Foster's voice came through the communication system. Ambassador, we want you to understand something. Humanity doesn't need your protection. We don't need your guidance. We don't need your technology. What we need is respect. The species that passed our test learned that humans are not primitive. Children who need supervision, Admiral Clark said. They learned that we're a civilization that values freedom, individual rights, and genuine partnership. They learned that we're stronger than we appear. Veltar looked around the room at the humans who had been deceiving him for weeks. You lied to us. Yes, Rick said. We lied to you to learn the truth about you. And the truth is that you see other species as servants, not as equals. You're not evil, but you're not ready to be humanity's friends. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, this doesn't have to end badly. You can return to your space with the knowledge that humanity is not what you thought we were. You can tell your collective that we're not interested in joining your organization, and we're not interested in being protected by you. Or, Paul Mitchell said, his hand resting on a weapon that looked far more advanced than anything the aliens had seen, you can try to force us to join your collective. But I should warn you, that would be a very bad decision. Outside, the human defense fleet had surrounded the Zephyrian ship. Dozens of advanced warships hung in space, their weapons powered but not yet targeted. We're not going to hurt you, Admiral Clark said. But we're also not going to let you hurt us. You have a choice to make, Ambassador. You can accept that humanity is not what you thought and leave in peace. Or you can try to fight us and learn just how badly you've underestimated our species. Veltar looked at the displays showing human technology and the fleet of ships surrounding his vessel. Everything he thought he knew about this species was wrong. You're more advanced than we are, he said quietly. In some ways, Rick admitted. But more importantly, we're more experienced at dealing with species who think they know what's best for everyone else. The alien ambassador was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. What happens now? Now you go home, Admiral Clark said. You tell your collective that humanity is not interested in joining. You tell them that we're not a primitive species that needs guidance. And you tell them that if they want to have any relationship with us in the future, they need to approach us as equals, not as supervisors. Will you give us another chance? Veltar asked. Rick looked at the alien, who had been willing to let humans die to protect his own interests. Maybe. In a few decades, when you've learned to see other species as partners instead of property, you can try again. But next time, you won't get the benefit of a test. Next time, you'll have to prove your good intentions from the beginning. The revelation was complete. The aliens now knew that humanity was not what they had seemed to be. The question was what they would do with that knowledge. Director Frank Thompson sat at the head of the conference table in the Global Defense Council chambers. Around him, the most important leaders of humanity waited for his final decision. The room was deep underground beneath the real Earth's surface, protected by layers of advanced security systems. "The evaluation is complete," Frank said, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through 30 years of protecting humanity from alien threats. "The Zephyrian Collective has failed. Our character assessment in every measurable way." Ambassador Claire Roberts, humanity's chief diplomatic officer, reviewed the data on her tablet. Their responses to our crisis scenarios were particularly telling. They were willing to help only when it served their interests, and they used human suffering as leverage to gain political concessions. General Alex Rodriguez, commander of the Human Defense Forces, leaned forward. "More concerning is their attitude toward individual human rights. They fundamentally cannot understand why the opinion of individual humans matters when they could simply negotiate with our leaders." Frank nodded. "The psychological profiles are clear. They see us as useful, but inferior beings who need their guidance. They're not evil, but they're paternalistic in the worst possible way." Dr. Foster appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from the testing facility. "Director Thompson, we're ready to proceed with the final phase. The Zephyrians are waiting for our decision." "How are they handling the revelation?" Frank asked. "About as well as you'd expect. They're shocked, confused, and more than a little frightened. They realize they've completely misjudged human capabilities." Frank stood and walked to the large window that showed the real Earth spinning slowly in space. Cities of light covered the continents, and orbital stations hung like jewels in the darkness. This was the planet the aliens would never see, the civilization they would never truly understand. "Bring up the historical records," he said. The main screen changed to show data from previous first contact scenarios. 17 different alien species had found humanity over the past century, and each had been put through the same evaluation process. The Altarians passed the test in 2089. Claire said, reading from the files. "They offered genuine partnership and respected human autonomy. They're now our closest allies." The Centauri Federation passed in 2134. General Rodriguez added, "They saw humans as equals, even when they thought we were primitive. We've been sharing technology with them for decades." The Vegan Collective passed in 2156. Dr. Foster said from the screen. "They were impressed by human art and culture, not just our resources. They wanted to learn from us, not control us." Frank turned back to the table. "And the 5 species that failed?" The mood in the room darkened. Claire pulled up another set of files. The Draconian Empire in 2098. They wanted to use humans as soldiers in their wars. They were neutralized. The Orion Syndicate in 2143, General Rodriguez said. They planned to harvest human organs for their medical trade. Their fleet was destroyed. The Rigel Hegemony in 2167, Dr. Foster added. They wanted to strip mine Earth and relocate humans to prison planets. They no longer exist. Frank sat back down. The Zephyrians aren't as bad as those 3. They genuinely believe they're helping younger species by managing them. But the result is the same. They want to take away human freedom and independence. So what do we do with them? Claire asked. Before Frank could answer, an alarm sounded. Softly, Lieutenant Sarah Kim's voice came through the communication system. "Director Thompson, we have a situation. The Zephyrian ship is trying to send a message to their home territory." General Rodriguez was immediately alert. "What kind of message?" "They're trying to report their location and request reinforcements. They want to bring more ships to deal with what they see as a human deception." Frank felt a familiar cold anger in his chest. They still don't understand. They still think they can force us to comply with their plans. Orders, sir? General Rodriguez asked. Frank activated the communication system. Captain Danny Foster, this is Director Thompson. You're authorized to take whatever action is necessary to prevent that message from being sent. Captain Danny Foster, the son of Dr. Foster and commander of the Defense Fleet, responded immediately. Understood, sir. We'll jam their communications and disable their engines. On the main screen, they could see the space around the fake Earth. The Zephyrian ship was surrounded by dozens of human vessels, but it was trying to break free and escape to open space. They're powering up their weapons, Sarah reported. They're going to try to fight their way out. Frank shook his head. They still don't understand what they're dealing with. Captain Foster, show them. With pleasure, sir. The human ships moved with precision and speed that shocked the aliens. Energy beams lanced out from the human vessels, not to destroy, but to disable. The Zephyrian ship's engines died, their weapons went offline, and their communication systems were completely jammed. Their ship is disabled, sir, Captain Foster reported. No casualties on either side. Frank opened a direct communication channel to the Zephyrian ship. Ambassador Veltar, this is Director Frank Thompson of the Global Defense Council. I believe you were trying to call for backup. Veltar's face appeared on the screen, and he looked frightened and angry. You have no right to hold us prisoner. The collective will come looking for us. Ambassador, you're not prisoners. You're guests who have overstayed their welcome. And as for your collective, we've been monitoring their activities for decades. If they want to find you, they're welcome to try. General Rodriguez smiled grimly. We have defense systems they can't even detect, and weapons they can't imagine. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Frank raised his hand for silence. But that's not what we want, Ambassador. We want you to go home and tell your people the truth about humanity. What truth? Veltar asked. That we're not children who need your guidance. That we're not resources to be managed. That we're a free people who will never submit to foreign control, no matter how well-intentioned. Claire leaned forward. Ambassador, humanity has been dealing with species like yours for over a century. We've learned that some civilizations can be trusted with friendship and others cannot. Your collective falls into the second category. You're making a mistake, Veltar said. The galaxy is dangerous. There are species out there that would destroy you without a second thought. You need the protection of the collective. Frank laughed, but there was no humor in it. Ambassador, we are one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The civilizations you're worried about are the ones that failed our tests in the past. They're not a threat to anyone anymore. Dr. Foster spoke from the testing facility. We've been protecting ourselves for centuries, Ambassador. We've fought wars you've never heard of, defeated enemies you can't imagine, and survived threats that would have destroyed most civilizations. We don't need your protection. Then what do you want? Veltar asked, his voice tired and defeated. Frank stood up. We want you to leave. We want you to go back to your collective and tell them that. Humanity is not interested in joining their organization. We want you to tell them that we're not a primitive species that needs guidance. And if they don't listen? Veltar asked. General Rodriguez stepped forward. Then they'll learn the same lesson you're learning now. Humanity is not to be underestimated. Captain. Foster's voice came through the communication system. Director, we're ready to escort them out of the system. Frank nodded. Do it, but first, give them a demonstration of what human technology can really do. The space around the fake Earth lit up with energy as the human ships activated systems the aliens had never seen before. Massive construction vessels uncloaked, revealing that they had been building new defense platforms in real time. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets powered up, their energy readings off the Zephyrian scales. "This is what we're really capable of," Frank said. "This is what we've been hiding from you. We're not the primitive species you thought we were." Veltar stared at the display in shock. "How many other species have you deceived like this?" "All of them," Claire said. "Every species that has found us has been tested the same way. Most of them passed and became our friends. A few failed and were eliminated. You're getting a chance to leave because you're not actively malicious, just misguided." Frank walked closer to the screen. "Ambassador, I want you to understand something. Humanity values freedom above all else. We will never submit to foreign control, no matter how benevolent it claims to be. We will never accept protection that comes with the price of our independence. Your collective may have good intentions," General Rodriguez added, "but the road to tyranny is paved with good intentions. We've seen it before, and we won't let it happen to us." Captain Foster's voice came through the speakers. "Zephyrian vessel, this is Captain Danny Foster. You are free to leave our space. Your ship's engines have been repaired, and your navigation systems are online. I suggest you use them." Veltar looked around at the human leaders on the screen. "What if we want to try again? What if we want to approach you as equals?"